In the autumn of 1962, the world stood closer to destruction than ever before. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union had reached a boiling point. The discovery of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba had pushed the superpowers into a deadly standoff known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. While politicians negotiated and civilians held their breath, a Soviet submarine, B-59, was silently navigating the waters near Cuba. It was part of a secret Soviet mission, and its orders were clear: remain hidden, avoid detection, and await further instructions from Moscow. But something went terribly wrong. As the submarine floated deep underwater, the crew lost all contact with their command base. Days passed in silence. No radio messages. No updates. No idea what was happening above the surface. They had no way of knowing whether war had already started. Suddenly, the American Navy detected the submarine. Not knowing what it carried, the Americans began dropping practice depth charges, explosive signals meant to force the submarine to surface. But to the Soviet crew, it felt like an attack. Inside the submarine, heat was rising. The temperature had soared above 45 degrees Celsius (113 degrees Fahrenheit). Oxygen levels were low. The crew was exhausted, anxious, and terrified. And they had a deadly weapon on board, a nuclear torpedo, powerful enough to sink an aircraft carrier and start a nuclear war. The Soviet protocol stated that 3 senior officers had to agree before launching the torpedo. The captain, furious and under pressure, shouted, "We must launch. War has already begun." The political officer agreed. That made 2 votes in favor. But one man stood in their way, Vasili Arkhipov, the second in command. Calm and composed, Vasili refused to approve the launch. He argued there was no proof of war. He reminded them that their duty was to avoid disaster, not cause it. Tensions inside the sub were unbearable. Everyone waited for Archipov's final word. And he said no. He persuaded the others to surface the submarine and await orders from Moscow. When the submarine finally surfaced, the crisis above had not yet turned into war. The world had come terrifyingly close, but because of one man's refusal, nuclear disaster was avoided. In later years, American intelligence and historians uncovered what had happened under the ocean that day. They concluded that if the torpedo had been launched, the United States would have retaliated with full nuclear force, and the Soviet Union would have responded in kind. The result? Potential global nuclear war. Tens of millions dead. Civilization changed forever. But it didn't happen, because Vasili Arkhipov had the courage to say no. He never saw himself as a hero. He lived quietly until his death in 1998, but today, he is remembered as the man who saved the world without firing a single shot. Moral: true heroism isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet strength to choose peace when the whole world is demanding war.